I just want us to reflect briefly on Mary. So often there are those who look at the Roman Catholic Church and are so critical of the emphasis that's given to Mary, placed on Mary, the veneration of Mary, and it is said it's so wrong. But surely the gospel makes it very clear of Mary's importance in our salvation history. I wonder if it has to do with sexism. I mean, if it were a man focused or emphasized as the one who brought God's presence, in that way, as Mary did her role, would there be an issue? Would there be an issue at all? Maybe not, but I digress. Of course, we do not hear about Joseph, for other reasons probably. But Mary's story is so fascinating. And I would suggest that we probably may want to really hear a lot more than we really are, both men and women. For we see her as having a very integral part in God's plan. God had a plan, and God wanted someone to assist, and God chose Mary. And her response was typical of anyone who felt called by God to be engaged in that amazing divine plan. Humankind's deliverance. Think of Moses, for example, raised in Pharaoh's house, called by God to confront Pharaoh and to demand his people's release. And Moses, who am I? He said that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt. Who am I? I am not worthy, perhaps. He was assured, I will be with you. Isaiah is another example of such a response to God's amazing call to share God's divine plan of salvation. God called Isaiah, we recall, as he was in the temple at worship, beholding God's glory. He said, woe is me, for I am lost, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. But God yet still wanted Isaiah share in that divine plan. We heard of David when no one thought of David as important. Really, God, through the prophet, saw him as one fit to be the king of Israel. When Saul doubted his ability in the story of David and Goliath, we read in Sunday school, David said, the Lord who saved me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will save me from the hand of the Philistine. There is something happening here in these responses by these people. And today we have Mary, who, when told of her call to be the mother of our God, how can this be? And not much, really. But when she was assured that she was the person chosen, he said, let it be to me according to your word. In these examples just shared, two things strike me as so critical for our own response to God's call to us in our own time. The first is a simple humility. A simple submission in humility to the will of God. God chose you. It's you God wants. takes time to find you where you are, at your workstation, maybe in your bed reading, but God finds you and says, I want you to be a part of this amazing work that we are doing in our world. Do we not respond? The second thing that I find important in these responses of David, of Isaiah, of Moses, and Mary is their courage. That having been called and having first had that response initially of doubting and feeling of being inadequate, they then go forward in courage. See the courage of Moses confronting Pharaoh. The courage of Isaiah as he confronts the king and the people with their sin. See the courage of David taking on the giant and the armies around him and conquering. Not only going there to fight them, but conquering them because he was conquering through the strength of the God who called him in the first instance. See Mary and her courage all through our Lord's life, even to the cross. When she stands there as a broken mother will stand before her son and see her son's death or dying, burial, she see her courage being there because she endured so much. But she, in the first instance, said, "Let it be to me according to your will," and he trusted in God to be there for her. That's something for us to really think about. I am called by God. I know I have my shortcomings. I may not act all the time, but God who calls enables. The only work really that does not require a qualification of any kind in the first instance, to say here is the resume, is the call to serve God. God offers the employment, if you will. He calls anybody, everybody. Not only PhDs or BAs or those qualified in the field, but he calls everybody and enables us to do what we are called to do, given our own skills. Yes, you bring skills, you bring gifts, you bring energies and passions, and he gives us the strength to perform that, because the business of serving God is a multi-billion-dollar business in terms of what we do. Don't think in those terms. We see at home, it's not piano business. It's nothing small. It's called to serve God. It's amazing. And we are blessed by it. And so, my friends, I want us to really consider our individual call to serve. We are serving in so many ways already. And that's so important. Pray God to give us the strength to continue in that service, because it is so vital to the mission of God in this community, indeed, wherever we go. And yes, thank God for Mary. Mary, in our own time, emulate her humility, and by God's grace, be given her courage to do what God calls us to do. Serve Him by loving Him and loving others as ourselves. Amen.